Well, let's move to the developing story of the day now. The Integrity Commission of the ANC formally recommending to the ANC's National Executive Committee that Ace Magashule must step aside as Secretary General. It also says if he refuses, the NEC should suspend him. The Commission also says it's worried that society perceives the ANC NEC as being unable to act against Magashule because its own members are implicated in corruption. Magashule, you'll remember, faces corruption charges relating to the Free State asbestos scandal. Joining us now, Dr Sam Koma, political analyst and head of research at the Milpark Business School, and the political analyst Professor Tinyiko Maluleke. Professor Maluleke, good afternoon to you. This seems, to me at least, from the Integrity Commission of the ANC to be a really strong message. They're saying, firstly, the NEC should ask Ace Magashule to step aside. Secondly, that if he doesn't, he should be suspended. And thirdly, that the NEC itself doesn't seem to be able to act against corruption.
Yeah, there is an element of rebuke in that statement. In fact, you could divide it into three sections. The first section of the statement is an affirmation of what Ace Magashule agreed to at the meeting with them. So you have got that whole paragraph that says he understood, he accepted, he saw clearly, and so on. Basically saying we have contracted him, he has committed himself, he understands where we're coming from. Then the second part of the statement is really a rebuke of the NEC, saying that the NEC, there is a perception that the NEC is not strong enough, that the NEC is helping or making things worse in terms of perceptions of the NEC not being strong enough to take a decision, and that the NEC should do better. So it's a kind of a rebuke for the NEC. And then the last part, of course, is the strong recommendation that the NEC should simply act and stop doubting the soundness of the decisions of its own conference or the conference of the ANC.
Dr. Koma, the other element to this is this all happened within 3 days. They saw Ace Magashule, as we understand it, on Saturday morning, I think it was. Tuesday afternoon already, this is leaked. They're not messing around.
Yes, there is a common saying that a week is long in politics. Already last week, Friday, the national spokesperson of the ANC, Pule Mabe, said to us that the SG has shown courage by volunteering to appear before the Integrity Commission of the ANC that took place through meeting with the SG on Saturday. And wow, we are on Tuesday, already there is a report that has been finalized by the Integrity Commission, which is quite directive. And I agree with Professor Maluleke that if you read the report, it's basically an indictment on the NEC. It's an NEC that has been portrayed as indecisive, vacillating, and reneging on the ANC Nasrec conference resolutions and its own decisions regarding specifically on how to tackle and uproot corruption within its own ranks. So the ball is in the court of the NEC to reaffirm its authority as the highest decision-making body in between conferences of the ANC. Full implementation of the Nasrec conference resolutions. But it's still early days to write Magashule's political obituary. He's going to play a long game. He's got options available for him. The first option is to win the internal debate, which is part of what the NGC will be looking into when it sits sometime next year, I think around May. And already they have given us an indication, and that indication is to say we agree and also
Dr. Koma, I'm so sorry. I'm going to just give that line time to catch up with us, because there does seem to be a problem on the line there. Professor Maluleke, if I may just continue with you in a moment. You pointed out, I mean, completely correctly, I think, that this message comes in three parts. This statement report, I suppose, is the official word, report of the Integrity Commission. And the fact that the Integrity Commission spent so much time explaining how Ace Magashule voluntarily took part in this. I mean, aren't they putting him in a little bit of a corner? They're saying, well, you were very happy to come and speak to us. Now you have to accept our findings.
Yes, I mean, there's something very strategic in the way the first part of that statement is written. It is really not merely saying you came to speak to us. It also praises him for taking the Integrity Commission into his confidence, for sharing documents with it, and for respecting it. And then listing all of the things with which they were in agreement with him, or he was in agreement with the Integrity Commission. So in that way, making sure that he is tied up. But that notwithstanding, Stephen, if you read the end part of the statement, they even close the gap on the question of, should he resist, the decision of him stepping aside, he should be suspended. So that's how strong this statement is. So they say he agreed to cooperate, but in the event that he doesn't cooperate, please just suspend him. And then they quote the relevant section of the Constitution. Of course, I agree with my colleague that this simply shifts the battle to another level, to another terrain, to a whole set of new issues and a whole new area, basically. But the Integrity Commission is basically saying to the NEC, why did you even bother referring this to us? Why didn't you finish the job? Because you know what to do.
And I mean, Professor Maluleke, I mean, when we look at this, I mean, you talk about a whole different element. I mean, within the NEC, I mean, people will come up with arguments, but I don't really know how Ace Magashule's supporters argue in the NEC now. They wanted it to go to the Integrity Commission. He volunteered to go to the Integrity Commission. It's made a finding. I mean, it's going to be quite a complex argument, isn't it?
Well, it is a little complex, but there are many terrains and many levels at which this battle is being fought. And I think that's the point that my colleague was making earlier. So the NEC is one terrain, the streets are another terrain, the branches are another terrain, the courts of the land, the crowds that gather outside the courts of the land, the NGC that is coming up, the vitriol and acrimony that seems to exist between the supporters of Ace Magashule and those who support President Cyril Ramaphosa. All of that will come into play as we proceed and as we go forward. The question is, do ANC members, those in the NEC and outside of the NEC who support Ace Magashule, have the appetite to engage in the kind of street battles that we saw, say, in 2006, 2007, when Jacob Zuma was essentially in a very similar position? Will we go there? It seems to me that if the crowds that we saw in Bloemfontein are anything to go by, we cannot rule that possibility out, that the battle is going to be escalated, not so much to the level of the NEC, but to the level of the street and the branches and the NGC and the lobby groups and the factions that are in the ANC.
So much to consider. Professor Tinyiko, Maluleke, Dr Sam Koma will remain with us. More on this conversation, more on this discussion about Ace Magashule and the ANC's Integrity Commission in just a moment. Stay tuned. Right, we continue, of course, our conversation around Ace Magashule, the Integrity Commission of the ANC, reporting after just 3 days after meeting with the Secretary General on Saturday, saying in a report that appears to have been leaked, and quite comprehensively leaked, if I can use that phrase, that he must step aside from his position, that if he refuses to step aside, the NEC must actually suspend him. Dr Sam Koma is a political analyst and head of research at Milpark Business School. Professor Tinyiko, Maluleke, you'll know him as well, of course, the political analyst. Professor Maluleke, the other thing about this is that for the Integrity Commission, this is almost an existential issue. If there's no action taken against people in high office who are accused of corruption, the Integrity Commission itself, I imagine, is going to find itself in a very weak position.
Yeah, look, I mean, the Integrity Commission has been under fire for a long time. It has been called toothless. It has been called very unmentionable names, really, because many of its recommendations get ignored. But this time around, I don't think it is the problem of being ignored. This time around, the problem is they feel that matters are being referred to them that ought not to be referred to them, matters about which there is, in their view, sufficient consensus out there. And it is only for the NEC to take appropriate action. And they suspect that, and they actually say it in this report, that it seems that when members of the NEC fear that they themselves may be guilty of similar offenses, they don't want to take action in case they are also implicated. And that's quite an outrageous thing to say, and quite a brave thing to say, depending on which perspective one looks at it. So it is indeed fighting for its own integrity. You know, it's called the Integrity Commission, but it has not always been regarded as a commission with integrity. And I think this is an attempt to assert its own integrity and to basically put the ball back in the court of the NEC from whence it came.
In the past, I mean, in almost all spheres that I've seen in our society, when someone is suspended from a position, they almost never come back, right? It doesn't matter if they're, in government, in the judiciary, in a CEO of a company, they almost never come back. And that's one of the reasons Ace Magashule is going to fight so hard, isn't it?
That's part of it, but also because he is quite a senior member of the party, elected at conference. He holds an elected position, directly elected by conference. And the problem, of course, is that this decision that we're talking about is also a conference decision, which was further sharpened and consolidated in August when there was that special meeting where it was decided that people should indeed step aside. So he is quite senior. And so what happens to that position when the General Secretary is suspended? How do you prepare for the next NGC when the kingpin for the preparations of the NGC and the CEO of the party effectively is unavailable, is unable to do their job because they have been asked to step aside or suspended? So there is a whole new set of issues that I don't think the ANC has had to deal with, because the problem with the former President Zuma was the president, not so much the CEO of the party. So this I think makes it very, very difficult for him. And of course, the possibility is that once he is suspended, he may never come back, except if the NGC returns him, except if the branches in the next election return him, because such is the nature of his position. It is an elected position.
Dr. Sam Koma, you're back with us, I understand. I mean, one of the things that's really interesting about this is that the ANC's Integrity Commission says that the ANC NEC must implement its own resolution from the August meeting. We sort of call it the step aside resolution of the NEC. And it does lead one to wonder about why it was in August that suddenly the NEC made this resolution. And I'll never forget, we took the President live here on Newsroom Africa Channel 405 when all of that was happening. It was a briefing from all of the top officials at the end of that NEC meeting. It would seem now that those who oppose Ace Magashule wanted and pushed very hard for the resolution in August, knowing all of this was coming. They were preparing the ground for such a possibility that the Integrity Commission would say this around Ace Magashule.
You're definitely right, Stephen. In fact, the pretext to that, there was a special NEC meeting which was called to deliberate on the ramifications and the challenges that arose as a result of the PPE corruption scandals. So when the NEC met or set, it was because they called for a special NEC meeting. But I think behind the scenes, the Ramaphosa camp were shrewd to say, let's also insert this other decision that speaks to our NASREC conference resolution to say anyone who faces corruption charges should step aside from his or her leadership position. But if also you read the Integrity Commission's report, in fact, it is appalled to say you met in August, you took these resolutions, you met again in December, you could not even furnish the NEC with the guidelines that you agreed on in your last sitting, which took place in August. So basically, the Integrity Commission is directive. It says, do not renege from your decisions. Be consistent and also be assertive in implementing ANC conference resolutions and your own decisions that speak to the issue of corruption and those who are implicated or facing corruption charges. So the NEC is in a corner. Of course, we know the next process is for the officials to process the report that will go to the NWC early Jan 2021, and later or subsequently the NEC will meet ahead of the January 8 statement. So by then, we'll get a clear sense whether the NEC has reaffirmed its own decisions, bearing in mind that the President Ramaphosa, when he announced the NEC outcome of the December meeting, he said the NEC resolved that it will not retreat from its own resolutions related to corruption matters. So I don't see them retreating when they meet again early in January to look at the Integrity Commission's report.
I mean, within all of this, you've got to also ask yourself, I mean, could Ace Magashule have known, could he have reasonably foreseen that the Integrity Commission would act in the way that it has? And I suppose the answer to that must be yes. He would be prepared for this outcome.
Yes, he was prepared for the outcome already. You remember last week Thursday, the ANC Youth League in the Free State announced or made a public pronouncement to say the Integrity Commission is known to be biased. We have issues with its integrity. So already they were preparing the ground, but also being mindful that the outcome of the Integrity Commission's process regarding the appearance of Ace Magashule before it will likely arrive at this particular recommendation to say, let's reaffirm the conference resolutions that if you're facing corruption charges, you need to step aside from your leadership position until finalization of your criminal matters. And it is good that the report does say, in case the Secretary General of the ANC is reluctant to volunteer to step aside, the NEC should consider the suspension of the Secretary General. So they're quite clear in their recommendations.
Professor Maluleke, I mean, I don't know if you're aware of this. It's on our screen at the moment. I mean, it's a very strange situation. The three of us are talking about the ANC Integrity Commission. This is the National Commission, basically telling the NEC to take action against Ace Magashule. And the reason is that he was not able to give them an appropriate explanation for the fact that he faced criminal charges. Now, Zandile Gumede, the former mayor of eThekwini, she faces criminal charges, also about corruption. And in KwaZulu-Natal, the ANC's Integrity Commission in that province has cleared her, I don't know if you know this, has cleared her to go back to duty, to go back to the positions that she had before, which would mean that she would be a member of the provincial legislature in KwaZulu-Natal and her role in the ANC. I mean, Professor Maluleke, I'm afraid the Integrity Commission machinery in the ANC might look a little inconsistent this afternoon.
Yeah, we were talking about the integrity of the Integrity Commission earlier. But it seems to me, Stephen, that what we should talk about is the integrity of the ANC in general. That is really what is at stake. That is really what this battle is all about. Whether this glorious movement of liberation is able to remain ethical, is able to remain consistent, is able to conduct its business in fairness, so that what is done in KwaZulu-Natal is the same as what is done in Limpopo and in Gauteng and everywhere. At the moment, it doesn't seem to be the case, and the Integrity Commission itself, its provincial commissions seem to be doing something different. One would need to get the full report and rationale for the decision that has been taken with regards to Gumede before one makes too strong a statement in one way or the other, because we don't quite know what has been considered there and what has not been considered. But the fact that you have Bandile Masuku, MEC, former MEC for Health, he's lost his job, he had to step aside, and now you have someone else who has been cleared with very similar, and of course, Ace Magashule. What is the difference between Magashule, Gumede, and Masuku? Because they all belong to the same party. So the integrity of the ANC is also at stake. And the NEC, and I think that's the rebuke from the Integrity Commission, that you as the NEC have a duty to uphold the integrity of the organization by making sure that you implement what the organization agrees upon. But, which organization is deciding to do what? It seems to me that sometimes we have several ANCs living side by side at the same time.
Professor, surely one wouldn't believe that, would one? Professor Tinyiko Maluleke, I do appreciate the time. Thank you very much indeed. The political analyst, Dr Sam Koma at the Milpark Business School. Thank you for your time as well this afternoon. All right.